This high-functioning tech demo is finally becoming a game. To do this, it's making some changes to build a more cohesive experience, and it's making that experience a bit more arcade, as some might say. Master Modes is simplifying solo ship combat. Scope Glint is introducing artificial safeguards in FPS gameplay. Sliding mechanics are increasing mobility, and logging in has been confirmed to work anywhere in the future. On the other hand though, things seem to be getting more complex as well. Control surfaces are expanding atmospheric flight and highlighting VTOL engines. Weapon and component maintenance and malfunction will require you to care for your guns, items, and ships and replace them over time. Inventories have been done away with for a fully physicalized system, and even ships are limited by their ability to produce oxygen for your crew now. The studio is picking and choosing where it wants to streamline gameplay and where it wants to expand it. This is why you see so many arguments that the game is simplifying too much, while also seeing others claiming it's becoming too complicated for the average player. Because honestly, it's hard to nail down the exact experience they're going for. In today's supporter-exclusive Red Take, originally published in June, I'll be looking at why the game is seemingly simplifying in some areas while becoming more sim-like in others, and Star Citizen's struggle to define the game for the right audience. These exclusives released to all of our supporters months before going public as a thank you for sponsoring this channel. You can join below or over on Patreon for these videos, live podcasts, access to our referral code randomizer, and more. If you already have, thank you for supporting my Tomato Talks. Over the years, we've heard many claims that Star Citizen will be the best damn space sim ever. But defining a space sim is an important part of that claim, and for the most part, I can't find that CIG ever truly has. After researching early videos, the Kickstarter page, and referencing the development over time, I can say this: Star Citizen wants to be a dynamic universe that is experienced in first person at high fidelity. It's meant to be experienced solo or with friends in a multitude of optional professions that start simply but scale in possibilities. The economy should be player influenced and dynamic, but able to self-regulate. Players should ultimately be able to operate on a specific set of rules that governs a universe where they can go about making a life in space. And all of this is to be experienced on the PC, due to its power and openness. How is the game doing at this? Well, the Star engine was only possible through the use of a PC base, along with the Vulkan API, 64-bit precision, and other crucial technical hurdles. The game is still being developed under a set of rules that have changed over time, but still drive the game. This is important in my opinion because in its pursuit of being labeled a sim, I don't believe games need to replicate real life exactly. Rather, a distinct understanding of how systems work should be set so that those systems can simulate the cause and effect that a player can expect when going about the game. For instance, if I'm going to need to worry about the tractor beam sizes and power when handling cargo, then I expect that cargo to behave differently in different types of gravity, such as on moons. I can see the fact that we don't have tractor beams in real life, but if they worked under a guided set of rules, then players can create situations that play off of those elements. We see this a lot in immersive sims, like newer ones, Prey and Dishonored, or older ones, Deus Ex and System Shock. Rest in peace, Arcane Austin. I think there are many places where Star Citizen falls short on this, to be clear, but we'll talk more about that later. On the other points of Star Citizen's primary goal from back in the day, a first-person experience driven by professional possibilities that scale up and under a player-affected economy. This all feels like the stuff we've been seeing through the different gameplay careers, the quantum economy simulation that we've looked into, and the ability to scale up with mission modules, a diverse set of locations, and high variety in your gameplay experience based on which star system you're going to be in. But that description, the primary goal with the first-person experience and all that stuff, it leaves a lot for interpretation. And even the founder himself says the idea of this game has changed quite a bit from the original pitch in some aspects.
It's a bit of a Pandora's box that got opened when we realized we had the level of support to really go all the way, because it's a completely different scope of game now than 10 years ago when I got on stage and I was pitching a much more limited, sort of privateer, freelancer online, and a next generation wing commander.
It's a different environment in the gaming industry than it was when this first started, and I would say compared to 10 years ago, Star Citizen has the ability to appeal to way more than just space sim fans. In fact, I think people need to understand that not everybody who plays Star Citizen actually wants to fly spaceships. I did a video about this before, but I'm thinking about doing an update again. The original pitch focused so much on the idea of a first-person immersive universe that balanced risk versus reward and made you care about your character. A game about exploring and making a mark on the universe itself, possibly even naming something that you discovered. A game that constantly added content on a bi-weekly basis. These were all things that Chris explicitly mentioned at the onset of this game, but it didn't go too far beyond that. So why is there so much conversation and debate about the game shifting hard from the original idea? Take a look at the biggest topics that currently seem to change the game quite a bit. Bed logging was a topic discussed for years, emphasizing the idea of owning a bed being a huge benefit in your ship choice. This year we learned logging on and off will eventually be available everywhere. To some, this destroys the sim-focused aspect of needing to account for your access point on long missions, and de-emphasizes certain ship benefits. But others see it as simply rewriting the rules to allow the game to appeal to more players and allow for more congruent gameplay while still allowing for any number of effects, negative or positive, to be taken on players who choose not to keep a bed around. At the time of publishing in June, we don't know how far the consequences will reach though. The important part is that they define and emphasize the rules and reasons for a game mechanic like bed logging in the context of which ships have them. The fact that bed logging won't be required, along with the idea that all medical beds support respawns, can be seen as a watering down of the experience of Star Citizen. At the end of the day though, they don't inherently impact the original vision of Star Citizen if they still impart incentives to use their systems, and gameplay-focused consequences for death and a lack of planning. When it comes to more specifics, there are a number of more minute changes that players have focused on. The ability to quickly press a button to complete an activity with a single button prompt, or using a wheel system to make more in-depth selections, has rubbed people the wrong way. While both of these systems can be seen in other games, that's part of what many don't like, as they consider it watering down the experience, making it more casual, or making it worse by making it work with gamepads. But these menus have been in games since as early as 2019, and Chris himself has shown support for gamepads for quite some time, going all the way back to the original Kickstarter page, so I don't understand this one. But when it comes to interactions, CIG has clearly focused more recently on streamlining actions to keep players in the game more. Button prompts, simplified ammo repacking, backpack reloading, FPS scanning, a mini-map, and dynamic crosshairs have all been noted as arcadeifying Star Citizen. But I think it's good to look at changes in the greater scheme of things to understand this phenomenon Star Citizen is seeing. Like I said in the beginning, it's becoming a game. With this, many different types of gameplay need to start melding together in a cooperative way. We're seeing the complete physicalization of items in the game. The inventory has been removed, no longer can you magically grab things out of the city or ship hold, and anytime you need to move something, you have to physically do it. With such a major part of the game requiring so much focus, it makes sense to make sure the interactions and prompts, ability to scan and identify cargo, and task of managing ammo and items becomes a bit more forgiving. If CIG wants players to embrace these complex game systems, the tools the players need to do so need to be more straightforward. If you need to manage every bullet or magazine in a fight, players will be less likely to focus on the other more consequential parts of that fight, like shooting people, looting, or focusing on objectives. In the meantime, something like a time delay on your reloads can still remind those players they should be preparing for the fight regardless. This same thing goes for minimaps. If we want players to visit dozens of locations and make use of their amenities, stores, and highlights, we should give them an in-game way to find them if needed. In the meantime, you can still require players to download or purchase the most valuable parts of that minimap data. And while dynamic crosshairs may come off as too hand-holding for some players, it only exists on specific helmets. This goes a long way in emphasizing equipment, loot, and preparation for each player based on what they're doing and the actual armor they need. Rather than every player having an FPS crutch, which can be turned off in the menu anyways if desired, a player will eventually need to pick between a combat-oriented helmet or something that might help with exploration and scanning, salvage and refining, or engineering and component repair. Most importantly, these changes build a progression system in Star Citizen that is based more on the items you find, buy, and craft, rather than arbitrary skill points in rifles, pistols, and shotguns. These are just a few of the ways some of these weird changes might fit into the wider reaching gameplay of Star Citizen. Master Modes is one of the biggest examples of this. Here is a game that has succeeded on marketing, promoting, and emphasizing solo dogfighting for over a decade. But now that the game is in a place to start supporting other ships in their systems, things are changing a bit. While artificial speed limits run counter to the free idea of the game, and it's not really something I enjoy, they still define a set of rules that all of the gameplay is based around. They enable better turret-based gameplay, encouraging players to group up on ships more often. They emphasize targeting components and vital ship systems, giving engineering and defense-focused players more to do in battle. And they may even help players better communicate their intent by actively displaying to others that weapons are on or off. While the change hurts one part of the gameplay, much like medical bed respawns initially hurts medics, and physicalized inventories hurts some cargo haulers, they are the types of changes that are meant to expand the gameplay as a whole. Just like Chris said in the initial pitch, so that you can live a life in space, not just be a soldier or a combat pilot. And that's the crux of this whole thing. These changes sacrifice some particular bit of gameplay in one particular area in order to bolster the whole game's position. Improving medical gameplay can also have impacts on FPS play, and making FPS movement more complex could hamper the calm nature of the investigation gameplay. CIG has the task of preserving these unique gameplay styles independently while also making them interact cohesively. Trying to build a game that is based on simulating a set of rules that require more thought, preparation, and time invested may not be the hardest thing, but also keeping it interesting enough and fun to appeal to enough people to keep it funded, well, that's not even unique to Star Citizen, though its design makes it a bit more difficult. What we're going to see over the next couple of years is the setting in of Star Citizen as a proper game, which means more niche details will be lost, more hardcore aspects that needed prerequisites will start to pop up and surprise newcomers, and undeniably the community will have plenty of debates about what is the right or wrong direction for the game. And while most games make you wait until release or just a few months before release for players to see these things, acknowledge them, and come to terms with the game design, we do at least get to critique and help shape it to some extent while it's being made. And no, that doesn't mean my YouTube comments are going to get changes made to the game. You should probably post those to the official forums. That all being said, at the end of the day, this is the game Chris Roberts wants to make. Many compromises will be made to get it working exactly as needed given all the variables, but the game itself is not going to be for everyone. It won't be a real-life simulator, and it won't be a casual space adventure. It'll be somewhere in the middle, reasonable to pick up, but emphasizing preparation, choices, trade-offs, and an immersive experience. As we continue into the 4.x patch cycle, this will only become more and more obvious. While supporters are watching this video as early as June of 2024 playing 3.23.1, 4.0 will be the update we are playing by the time this goes live. Even in that 5-month span, this game will shift more than it has in 5 years' time. Many of the complex systems that we've been covering in countless monthly reports, Inside Star Citizen sprint reports, and design doc deep dives are actually starting to trickle into the game. And many of the difficult questions surrounding player ownership, base building, large ships, time to kill, respawning, and monetization are starting to be dialed in. I personally see things that don't reflect the game I expected, but I'm not married to a lot of the smaller details, like how I reload guns or loot bodies. These are important things to the experience, of course, but ultimately, I'm excited for the ability to experience space in the first person with a multitude of gameplay options and some pretty cool ships to fly around with my friends in. If I need to do that through somebody else's vision for now, so be it. I'm having fun. And that's just my opinion. I publish these red takes as more opinionated videos about the overall design and direction of Star Citizen. If you'd like to see a new one every month, add your referral code to our referral code randomizer, get live access to our podcasts, or just support what we do, you can help support us by sponsoring the channel down below or visiting us over on Patreon. If not, subscribing here will definitely keep you up to date with the development of the game as well. And my other channels will deliver you long-form analysis, podcasts, and some gameplay. Whatever you decide, I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.